Hey guys, thanks for joining me once again. It's a Saturday morning. That can only mean one thing. It's story time right here on Thailand Bound. Before we get into the stories, I just want to say a sincere thank you to everybody over the past 5 years who've submitted these stories. I do get crankpots accusing me of making them up, and that would be a lot of stories to make up, wouldn't it? Without your stories, there would be no Saturday morning upload. Okay, with that said, I just want to put out a request again. If you've been to anywhere in Southeast Asia, not just Thailand, and you've got an interesting story, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to read it out on the channel. I do get less stories now because there are more stories out there, more channels rather, telling stories. When I started, there was only me and Simon from Land of Smiles, so I got a lot of stories, and plus COVID helped me because people were bored, they had nothing to do. But right now they're a little bit thin on the ground. But happy to say I've got 5 brand new stories that have never been read out on this channel before. So enough of my waffling, let's get on with story number 1.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Hello Peter, I do not know if this type of story is going to be well received by your subscribers, but it is my green life in a few words. Oh, by the way, I will use abbreviations as names because it is easier for me. My name is R. I am a 27-year-old male from Eastern Europe, a guy who lived below average income as a kid, but I was blessed with opportunities in my life. Except for my poor lifestyle in the late 80s, my father was a man with influence in a communist regime country. He had the opportunity to visit other countries, not just in Europe, but in Asia as well. I'm not 100% sure about these events because they came from my father's stories. Basically, he was visiting some Southeast Asian countries with some officials from my country, and from what he told me, he was connected with seafood products, which in my opinion sounds a little bit like BS because he was overall a farmer. But this was the introduction to my connection with Southeast Asia culture. I was 22 in 2019, a poor farmer boy from the countryside in my country, and somehow I was blessed with the opportunity to have an exchange experience with a guy from Thailand. To explain my state of mind at the time, I was a kid raised in a family with divorced parents since I was 12. My father living in Spain since I was 3 and my mother in Italy since I was 9. I had an older brother who kept me alive until then. I had always worked since I was 14. It was normal in our village. Kids used to work much earlier, so this is not an excuse, but that is why I had a lot of experience in the working field as a cooking assistant and bar helper. When I arrived in Bangkok airport, it was July. I was expecting heat, but for God's sake, it was something from hell. In retrospect, I think it was more about the humidity than the heat itself. I was lost because I forgot to enable roaming on my phone, and I lost contact with my caretakers who were supposed to pick me up. I waited for about an hour. I spent most of my money on 2 beers and a pack of cigarettes. I expected everyone to react like in my country where no one cares if someone drinks in the airport, but it was not that simple. In that moment, I was a true heavy metal fan with long hair and a long beard, but still cute as a 22-year-old guy. I cannot recall exactly, but 2 or 3 policemen or guards came and asked for my passport. I was not in my full command, and as I reached into my backpack, one of my large rings fell off. It had a pentagon. It was embarrassing, but they let me continue searching until I handed over my documents. They asked to search me, which scared me, but I accepted. They put a metal detector on me, which I failed because I forgot my necklace. I tried again and failed again. I took off my shirt and failed again. I dropped my jeans and failed again. I dropped my boots and socks and was left in a room with 4 men and 3 women. I was more red than a tomato and then realised I had a piercing in my tongue. It was not a happy ending with laughter. I stayed more than 9 hours in that room. Finally, the parents of the exchange student found me and vouched for me. After 20 minutes of awkward silence in a small old Toyota, we arrived at their home. I was so ashamed that my first impression was as nearly naked detained metalhead. The mother, if I recall correctly, her name was May, finally spoke. Her voice was soft, not angry. She said, "You had an exciting arrival, nah?" and tried to smile. I nodded and stared at my boots, which I held in my lap like a life preserver. Their house was not what I expected. It was a tall, narrow building squeezed between two others with a small shop selling drinks and food on the ground floor. We walked up tiled stairs to the living area. It was simple but clean. A large photograph of the king was on the wall, reminding me of communist houses with portraits, and the smell of incense mixed with lemongrass and chili hung in the air. The father, whose name I cannot recall because I did not interact with him much, showed me my room. A small space with a thin mattress and a fan that became my best friend. I tried to apologise for the airport, but he laughed and said, "It's okay. His father was military and airport security in Thailand is no joke," he told me. I was lucky not to be in jail, he said. So, cheerfully, I laughed it off. The next few days were a blur of new sensations. The heat felt like a physical weight compared to my country. The food was so spicy it made my eyes water, but I could not stop eating it because it was so good. The noise of motorbikes and street vendors was constant chaos, but the kindness was the biggest shock. Everyone smiled and looked like they were having the best day of their life. My father's stories from the communist era were always about suspicion and distrust, but here everybody smiled. The old lady at the corner stall gave me extra fruit. The friends of the guy I exchanged with took me to a street market and ordered for me, laughing as I tried durian for the first time. I hated it, but pretended to like it for their sake. May taught me how to properly why to her parents. I showed her Romanian folk metal, which made her look horrified. She took me to a temple where the monks chanted, and for the first time since childhood, I felt peace without a beer bottle. One evening, I sat with a father outside drinking sweet milky tea. The sky orange and purple, one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. He said he had been very angry about the airport. My heart sank, but then he said his wife saw something when the guards searched me. She said I was red as a tomato, but I never got angry. I was embarrassed but polite. A bad man would have shouted, but I just looked like lost, like a boy. She told him this boy needs a family for a little while. I did not know what to say. I looked at the empty spaces on my hands where my rings had been. I was just a boy from a broken home who thought drinking and being loud was a personality. But they saw past that, past the piercings and the shield. They saw me as a boy from the village they once were, and in that moment I began to understand that this exchange was not just about seeing a new country, it was about seeing a new version of myself. One not defined by the past, but built slowly and kindly in the present. Thank you for reading my story, and if you find it interesting, I can send you one from my last visit to Phuket. I know it's not your typical story, but at least I wanted to share with you your story from the Land of Smiles. And I personally think that's a great story. You know, a young man, he did mention in his, I didn't read it all out, but he did mention that he was an alcoholic when he was 22, and this exchange sorted him out. He came here, he's seen a different aspect of life, different people, got into the culture. As he said, he went to the temple, and he found happiness in another way. So well done to that young man. And if you watch this video and you have got another story, yes, definitely, I'd love to read it out. Some people worry that if they send in a story, it might not be the kind of story that I read out here, and they don't bother. But I wouldn't worry about that. It's very rare I turn down a story. The only stories I tend to turn down are the ones that are obviously made in ChatGPT or something like that, because I can tell straight away there's no feeling in a ChatGPT story, so that goes in the bin. And the other ones are just so exaggerated, or they've got bad language, and it's impossible to read them out. But generally speaking, all the others like this I would definitely read out. Right, okay, let's jump into number 2. Not all Thai women are bar girls. My real love story. Dating in the UAE was completely different ballgame. I did meet some great women though through Tinder, but far too many encounters were blatantly transactional, and many were openly chasing wealthy men, not the least bit shy about asking for things up front. It was a reminder that this kind of behaviour is not unique to Thailand. It exists everywhere. The difference was that in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, it often felt more exposed, more in your face, and what I found myself missing most was the warmth, sincerity and authenticity I'd always experienced with genuine Thai women I had met previously. By December 2021, Thailand reopened and I took a 3-week trip back while my son stayed with his mum. It felt amazing to be home again. During that trip, I recommended with friends and even went away for a short getaway with a Thai woman I had known for years. Our relationship was always a casual, no drama, friends with benefits arrangement. She was fun company, but she wanted to move overseas, and I knew she was not the right one for me. It was enjoyable. She paid for herself and shared and was never serious. During the same trip, I went on Tinder again, and that is where I met the woman who would change everything. She was 38 from Udon Thani, a senior manager for a European company in Bangkok, previously married but with no children. On paper, she seemed perfect, and in person, she was even better. Our first dinner almost did not happen because she was late coming from her office Christmas party and it was pouring with rain, but she kept calling and messaging to reassure me. And when she arrived, we had a fantastic evening. Over the next couple of weeks, I cancelled other plans just to spend more time with her. As my trip was coming to an end, I knew I wanted this relationship to continue, even if it meant managing it long distance. But just as we started having that conversation, an unexpected issue surfaced, something that could easily have derailed everything before it had a chance to begin. On my earlier trip, while on that short getaway with my Thai friend with benefits, I had casually sent her a photo of where I was staying. What I had not noticed at the time was that there was a shot included a bright pink suitcase in plain view. Unfortunately, she spotted it immediately. She knew it was not mine as she had been to my condo before and quickly connected the dots. When she confronted me about it, I knew there was no cover story that would hold up. So I chose honesty and admitted it belonged to a casual friend I had been away with before we met. But I reassured her that I had no interest in that woman and had stopped seeing her. I braced myself for everything to fall apart right there, but to my surprise, she simply thanked me for being truthful and said, "We were not together, so I cannot be mad." That moment of honesty became the foundation of trust that shaped our entire relationship moving forward, which included both of us deleting our Tinder accounts. From then on, things only grew stronger. She visited me in Abu Dhabi several times, paying her own way and never once asking me for money. She was independent and self-sufficient, and the first woman I ever introduced to my son as my girlfriend. After a few months, I knew she was the one, and that's where it ends, very abruptly, actually. There's a lot of nice women you can date and marry. It always winds me up when guys think they can come to Thailand. They don't have any experience, but they come to Thailand and they think they can take any woman for a price. It's just what the price is, and that's absolute rubbish. You know, it's a small percentage. It might seem a lot more than in your country, but it is a small percentage. And most Thai girls and women are actually very decent people. You know, it's when you go into the bars and the go-go clubs that the games start. Right. Okay. Into story number 3. I'm a 65-year-old Yank who has lived in Jomtien, Hua Hin and Central Pattaya for 2 years, though not in that order. In my 7 months in Hua Hin, I haven't really dated, and acquisition of the line IDs of pretty girls have been few and far between, like maybe 2. That was not the case either, Jomtien or Central Pattaya, but it's nice to live for a while in a city that, while it also has a beach, boasts an economy that isn't centred on beer bars. In all 3 beach cities, I formed some observations about Thai culture, of which women are a subset, which may prove helpful to your viewers who have never set foot in the kingdom. The US, UK and Canada are individualist cultures which generally celebrate independence and heroic risk. Southeast Asian societies are collective, where the family unit remains intact. They stay unified for life, economically, conversationally, spiritually and culturally. In terms of priority, Farang dates, boyfriends and husbands rank after mama, papa, grandparents, children and sometimes even siblings living at home, even if home is a 6 or 8 hour bus trip north of the city where the girl is employed. In such a collective society, while it may seem odd to Westerners, It matters little if their date or wife's brother are scarcely employed or not altogether responsible. This is not to generalise or slight Thai males. My point is more about the closeness that endures regardless of their fortune or the lack thereof. We all understand this as an element of a nation where there is a little that passes as a social safety net. Thailand is not socialist, nor was it ever colonised. Sticking together is tantamount. I'm emphasising these things to provide context to expat or vacationing males seeking temporary companionship or long-term romance. Thais eat in groups, drive through intersections in groups, enjoy food breaks from work in groups several times during a workday, not once as Westerners do, party or club in groups and think it odd that Farang dine, attend movies, travel or even live alone, or that we reside here so long without seeing loved ones back in our native countries. It can be instructive to date or romance Thai women with these differences in mind. As for Thai men, an expert can go weeks without seeing a middle-aged Thai couple eating together, shopping together, partying together, or playing pool together. Couples' activities, such as they are, seem reserved for young 20-somethings at hot pots or Korean barbecues or riding backpack lifestyle activities at 2 or 3 a.m. on the same motorbike. Couples who are a generation older, where the males are the age of your condo's security guards or food app delivery drivers, are only visible on bikes dashing about with a toddler seated before them. They are visible to and from their errand, but never during, despite the obvious packages or goods toted on board the motorbike, which make the errand evident. Who are the wives and the girlfriends of the taxi drivers, bike delivery men, mechanics, maintenance men, pool boys, hospital, police and tuk-tuk drivers? Who are the boyfriends and husbands of the nurses, street food cooks, 30 to 45-year-old massage girls, real estate agents and cosmetic counter staff? Of course, if a Farang finds himself or herself in the north or northeast of Thailand, in cities both large and small, they will encounter couples living together in houses, couples celebrating holidays with extended family, food, beer and Thai whiskey. We don't often see that side of Thai life in tourist towns. People move to the city seeking work, not spouses. So where does the short or long-term foreigner fit in? Up to you, to use a local expression. Your role can vary from social diversion to economic sponsor, with shades of grey in between. One's understanding of these interim shades, in my opinion, is central to one's ability to adapt and survive here. Thais, including women, have the same goals, drives and interests as anyone else around the world. It's just that Southeast Asian families function as units, whereas or not you as a boyfriend or date have ever met 90% of the members of that unit. Women in tourist cities often go back to live in their hometown for weeks or months at a time. To use the US as an example, there's no comparison for this with a 25 or 30-year-old American woman. She has either moved out of her parents' home or she hasn't. Boys are tolerated back home longer than girls, just like in Thailand. Thai women live far different lives than their Western counterparts. They can squat comfortably on sidewalks or hard floors for hours at a time, especially if eating or talking, and often both. They generally get about on motorcycles. They can ride side saddle on the backs of motorbikes wearing high heels while scrolling on their smartphone. They eat many times a day at their whim and taste, yet generally don't gain weight. They date men from cultures thousands of miles away. They date men they've never seen for months, with the exception of FaceTime smartphone calls. They work 15 days between days off. They sleep in the daytime. They kick their shoes off at the office, such as bank tellers, real estate agents and juristic office staffs. They dress for 90-degree Fahrenheit days in jackets, long sleeves, hoodies or jeans. They wade in Gulf beach waters fully clothed. Try not to stare or judge. Let me classify a few of the girls with non-nightlife jobs who visited me in Jomtien, the only one in Hua Hin. One of my most frequent Jomtien guests was 32 from Udon Thani. Very good English, not excellent, but better than 90% of those I've been with. Employed in a hotel, Very attractive with no tattoos. I had a one-nighter with a beauty salon staffer who later asked for help opening her own place. No dice. A beautiful baby-faced mum, probably 33 or 35, visiting from Isan to spend time with her older Plain Jane Treetown bartender sister. A few times I invited a girl, probably 29 to 31, who worked in a cosmetic surgery clinic in Treetown. I even chatted with her a couple of times near her job during her work breaks. The last time she visited me was to clean my condo for 500 baht. When she was done, she showered and we had an aerobic session and I gave her another 1,000 baht. A lovely full-figured girl I met on the ground level of Central Festival Mall, visited once and asked for no money. She prepares home-cooked food and delivers it to customers. The next time I text her, she responded she had a boyfriend. Then there's a petite tour guide, an emergency rescue worker from Buriram who visits Pattaya to hang out with girlfriends or leads small tour groups, mid-30s, no tattoos, very good English of course. We've hung out, played pool, gotten foot massages with one of her girlfriends who paid for all three of us. That girl's married to an English guy now, and when she comes over, we've never so much as kissed. When my father, godsister and female cousin were in Thailand last October and November, they stayed several days in Jomtien and she was their tour guide. I'd already known her. She'd slept at my place while family was here. I wanted to save them money from paying for her room. Still, no aerobics. Funny story, sometimes when she's with a girlfriend in Pattaya, a foreigner will ask her how much. Since she doesn't go with men, she ignores them or tells them she doesn't. If they persist, to get rid of them, she says 10,000 baht. I'll leave your listeners with a personal story or two of my last visit to Pattaya. I invited to my hotel a 33-year-old girl I hadn't seen since my move to Hua Hin. She has worked in supermarkets, bars, temples and Bangkok offices. Let's call her Fon to make the story easier. Fon is very pensive. She makes observations in great English, not like an international school grad, but as good as some others. She told me of a girlfriend who frequents host bars. A host bar is an establishment where young Thai women go for largely the same reason Farang go to beer bars. The hosts are attractive, fit Thai men. Fon doesn't like going to these spots with her friends, so I asked her why. She told me the men aren't attractive to her and are too young, and she isn't attracted to Southeast Asian guys, so she deems it a waste of her money. Even if she had the money, it bores her. Since she sometimes visits Hua Hin for medical checkups, but never texts me when she is in town or right before she recalled a recent visit for the first time, I learned she spends non-hospital time in a temple. Fon goes there to meditate, and I assume for treatments or follow-up related to cysts or growths she has had removed from her chest. They aren't implants. She isn't super large or firm. Because of that, she doesn't really call or text anyone. She said when she is in Hua Hin, she's not there to date. She turns men down while there. Fon also said a lot of men ignore her Thai-friendly profile, which states a certain ethnic preference. Like all women, she is surprised men hit on her when she is casually dressed or not wearing makeup, such as during laundry visits. She had a baseball cap and loose-fitting baggy pants in her bag when she visited me. The pants didn't have an elephant pattern, but they were cut like those generally when they visit me. She dressed all in black, always in pants, 5'5", 72 kilos, small waist, long shiny black hair, no tattoos, brown skinned. Fon tells me she will go weeks without working in a bar because the girls gossip a lot, and at her most recent spot, the mama-san felt she was lazy, even though some shifts Fon left the bar 5 times to do aerobic workouts with men. The point is, she doesn't go with everyone. She's one of the few Thai girls I've had relatively deep discussions with. To be fair, some girls I've seen only once have shared thoughts about Indian men, Middle Eastern men, work, family, or recreation. I trust these insights will help your male viewers fill in some mental gaps. Thank you for reading my story out once again. So that's quite an intelligent story there. It's quite a lot of editing involved. When I read them out, they come out fairly smooth, but I have to cut them up because I make a lot of mistakes when I'm reading them out. And this guy's obviously very educated, and he uses some very long words that are very difficult for me to pronounce sometimes, and I have to cut them out or go over and over again. But he's right. What he actually says in the story there's some good tips there for you to learn. Okay, we've got a couple of shorter stories now. Let's dive straight into story number 4. I thought I would share my story with you. I would love to hear my own story on your channel, but it is up to you, of course, if you find it interesting or not. I have followed your channel for a year, but I have watched all the previous stories as well. I have a 30-minute drive to work on Monday mornings. I always put on the Saturday edition on my phone. I just listen. I never watch the videos. I'm 54 now, and I visited Thailand only once as a backpacker with my then wife when I was 22 years old in 1994, which was an interesting experience. Later, more about it to make this story worthy for your channel. I am happily married for the second time for 26 years now. We have 3 children, and I have no intention to visit the Land of Smiles again, except for maybe a family vacation. Let me enjoy the pleasures of the ladies in Pattaya or Bangkok. Then why do I follow your channel, you might wonder? For me, it is an escape, a fantasy world that I feel part of by listening to the stories. It is a bit like people who read and enjoy Lord of the Rings, the world of elves and dwarfs. One can dream away in this world. Just by listening to all the stories about relationships, but about the banking, insurance and healthcare, I feel like I'm part of the life and lifestyle in Thailand without actually being there. It might sound strange, but I hope it makes sense to you, and I want to emphasize that I really appreciate the effort you put into your YouTube channel. Your comments about people that get annoyed with your clothing or haircut make me laugh, and when I listen to the crashed relationships with bar girls, I think, my goodness, how do they manage? But then again, I would probably fall for the same traps, inexperienced as I am in those matters. Back to 1994, when I visited Thailand, I guess the world was more simple in those days, without internet, mobile phones. As a backpacker, I never knew where I was going to sleep the next day. We travelled around Thailand for 6 weeks. We visited Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, Mae Hong Son, the River Kwai, the island of Koh Samui and Bangkok. While on the island of Koh Samui, we stayed in a homestay that was run by a lovely old couple that kept insisting we should make babies because we were married. We had no intentions in that direction. Luckily, because a year later our marriage crashed. I guess we got married too young, being high school sweethearts. We also met a guy who was a retired diver who lived with a young lady. We thought she was his daughter because age-wise she could have been. But after listening to your stories, I realised she was his wife or girlfriend. We stayed in Koh Samui for a week and went every evening to a beach bar. On the second evening, we met a beautiful young lady that started hanging out with us. She was our age and we chatted about everything and nothing like youngsters do. On the third day or so, she told us she was a ladyboy. We were completely naive and had no idea what a ladyboy was. We only discovered this later when we got back home. I still have fond memories of her. Her name was Na. She took us around the island on a scooter and showed us around. In exchange, we bought her some drinks, shared meals, and we had a good time together. No funny stuff at all. She was such a warm and friendly person. Writing this story makes me think about her. She must be in her 50s now, but I never hear anything from you in your stories about older ladyboys. I wonder what happened to her. We finalised our backpacking adventures in Bangkok, and that is where things went a little crazy. We had some arguments about the ladies who gave me a lot of attention. I guess my then wife was a bit jealous. We didn't go to Patpong or any of the lady areas, but just random girls in stores and restaurants always wanted a photo with me and wanted to chat with me to try their English, and for some reason, never with my wife. It also didn't seem to bother them that I was hand in hand with my wife when they approached me. So one evening, my wife had a headache and she convinced me I should go out and hang out with some ladies. I was young and didn't understand women very well. Looking back on this was not a good idea, of course. I went out for a beer and met two girls in a bar. There were no ladies' drinks, just normal drinks. I bought them a beer, which was very cheap, but they really seemed to enjoy this and were all over me. I told them I was married and my wife was in the hotel room, but they didn't worry about that. They told me for $100 I could take them both to a room in a nearby hotel for some drinks in a private room and have some fun together. That sounded like a good idea to me, since my wife told me I could and she had a headache anyway. And so we did. Boy, that was an incredible experience. They were a little younger than me, I guess, but had much more experience in the aerobics department, if you know what I mean. How naive I was back then, haha. So a word of advice from the married listeners. What happens in Thailand stays in Thailand. I guess she never overcame this adventure, but because a year later we split up. A couple of years after that, I met my current wife, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we are happily married for 26 years, and I have never desired another lady. I wish you good luck in Thailand, Peter, and many years in health and happiness. The chances are rather small, but never say never. Maybe we will meet one day. Then I'll buy you a couple of beers and a dinner. Take care. Such a nice story there. First of all, thank you very much for your compliments. It's always appreciated when you get a few nice compliments as opposed to the trolls and the armchair critics. Just regards to your comment about why don't I read out stories about older ladyboys. If they're sent in, I can. I don't make up the stories, honestly, hand on heart. Every story I've ever read out on here has been sent in to me by a viewer. A viewer. And if somebody sends a story about a lady, I have read out ladyboy stories, but I can only read out what's sent in. So if you've got an older ladyboy story, send it in and I'll read it out. Just the last thing on this story, a lot of people get kind of annoyed when you talk about ladyboys and they're describing a ladyboy and she did this and she did this. I get critics who write and said, it's not a she, it's a man. We should be calling him a he, not a she. You know, people get their knickers in a twist, but I just think it's quite funny, really. Right, into our final story tonight. This is this morning, I should say. This is number 5, and this is quite a bit shorter. So if you remember last week, there were two stories about a guy who'd taken tuk-tuks in Bangkok. One was a good story and one was a bad story. And I said I'd read the other two out next week, which is this week. There was actually only one. He'd sent in 3 stories. So you heard the other 2 last week. This is the third and last of his tuk-tuk stories, okay? Story number 3, The Ugly. One evening, I was out and about in Bangkok and finished up my evening near Soi 4 Nana. With some friends, I settled the account at the bar and realised I needed some money for a taxi home. Having enjoyed a number of drinks, I went to the nearby ATM to get some money. I took out a 10,000 baht. At this point, an eager taxi driver was watching me and offered his service. I jumped in the taxi and requested that he takes me to my hotel, Grand Central World. The driver took me this short distance, however, cleverly pulled up some distance short of my hotel and advised I needed to exit his taxi there, as he could then join the taxi rank nearby. Had he stopped at my hotel lobby, he would have had witnesses, hotel staff and security cameras. I had no issues with the 100-metre walk. I handed him the 1,000 baht as I had no change since the ATM only distributed 1,000 baht notes. I waited for my change. Suddenly, he looked at me and said, 200 baht. I said, yes, 200 baht. He said, you have to give me money. I said, what? I'm not hearing this correctly. He said, you have to give me money. WTF? Am I going crazy? I said, mate, I'm drunk, but I'm not stupid. I gave you the money already. No, he said, you don't give me any money. I pulled out my cash and counted exactly 9,000 baht. I said to him, I've just been to the ATM and withdrawn 10,000 baht. I gave you 1,000 baht. He said, no, you didn't. I said, drive me to the police station and we can talk this one out with the police. He said, no. What to do? I took a photograph of his ID, him and his car. I told him I didn't like it and I didn't appreciate what he was doing. He only opened his wallet and said, look, I only have 300 baht here. He said, if I took your money, you would see it here. I took the 300 baht out of his wallet and told him I was unimpressed with his treatment of me and exited the taxi. When I reflect on this story again, I'm 100% right. I had given him the money. Otherwise, why would he allow me to take the 300 baht out of his wallet or refuse to go to the police? And yeah, honestly, guys, if you come here and you're a bit naive with Thailand, the worst place to kind of get scammed out of money is definitely taxis and tuk-tuks. Tuk-tuks, the latter, being the worst. They'll try every trick in the book to get, to scam you. So if you have to take a taxi, make sure he puts a meter on. There's no discussion. A lot of guys will say, oh, I went from point A to point B and I only paid 200 baht or I only paid 150 baht. There is no fixed price unless, well, not even for the airport. There is no fixed price. It's always a meter. You might discuss a fixed price if you go from, say, Bangkok to Pattaya or Hua Hin. That's different. But generally speaking, even going to the airport, it's a metered price, So if you get into a taxi and he gives you a price, just say no meter. And if he refuses, jump out. It's not like you won't find another taxi in Bangkok. There are literally thousands and thousands. And as far as tuk-tuk drivers go, I wouldn't even deal with them, because they're just the biggest rip-off. It's quite fun to take a tuk-tuk ride through the city at night if you've never done it before. But just make sure you get all the details. You both agree on the same price, distance and everything. Okay, right, okay, that's it. Going on a little bit this week as always. I'll end as I always do. If you're sitting on a story and you'd like to hear it read out here on Thailand Bound, send it in. I'll make it anonymous and you too can have your story read out. Thanks for listening to me once again. I'll catch you next week with hopefully a bunch of new stories. Until then, have a great week, whatever you're doing.